The transition from Yom Kippur to Sukkot is a fascinating spiritual roller coaster. We go from a day that is filled with things that everyday life are allowed, and we make them forbidden. That's Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is a day we're eating and drinking. Things that we do all the time are once a year are forbidden for us to do. We can't wash ourselves. We can't use ointments. Everything in normal life is not allowed. And we then move to a day, 4 days later, a day where everything that we do in normal day life turns like that into a mitzvah. It becomes a mitzvah to eat and drink when you do it in the sukkah. It becomes a mitzvah to sleep when you do it in the sukkah. It becomes a mitzvah just to hang out with friends and family when you do it in the sukkah. On Yom Kippur, everything about everyday life becomes forbidden, while everything from everyday life on Sukkot becomes elevated to the status of a mitzvah. And I think that this transition is a fascinating lesson in how to make our tshuva, how to make all the repentance and all the improvements that we've worked on from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, how to make them last. The Gemara Masechet Erechim brings a story about how when Bnei Yisrael came back to Eretz Yisrael after they were in exile in Bavel. And it says that what they did was they built Sukkot. This is fascinating. What does it mean that they built Sukkot? The Gemara then tells us that it wasn't actual physical Sukkot, but rather the Sukkot they built was a spiritual Sukkah. The Sukkah was that they prayed to Hashem that the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination for Avodah Zarah, will be abolished. Now, why did they pray that the evil inclination for Avodah Zarah, for idol worship, will be abolished? Why is that what's on their mind? Now, it's actually quite simple. The reason why they were kicked out of the land in the first time, why the first Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, was because they worshipped idols. So obviously, when they came back, they have now been redeemed. What is the only thing on their mind? The thing on their mind that they're thinking about is, how do we make this last? How do we make sure that all the mistakes that we made beforehand won't reoccur? So they built Sukkot. They built a function of something that concreted the fact that they were just saved. And they prayed to Hashem to get rid of the idol worship. Sukkah, throughout Tanakh, and there's many places we can see this, Sukkah represents the fact that we are not just saved, but rather that we are being sustained. That rather we are actually doing something that can turn our saving into something that will last for much, much longer. And that's the message of Sukkot right after Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, we are inspired by elevating ourselves to the level of angels. But that's not everyday life. That's inspiration. What Sukkot does is it takes that elevation and it turns into everyday life. And it means that now, instead of refraining from eating, let's look at eating and sleeping and drinking in everyday life as part of how we serve Hashem and how we can elevate ourselves and our everyday lives to the same level as we did in the inspiration of Yom Kippur. Chag Sameach.